This is AV SuperFriends Off the Rails, an almost regularly scheduled open discussion on audio and video in higher education. We'll sound off about our most brilliant ideas, our dumbest mistakes, and everything in between. And because this conversation will almost certainly go off the rails at some point, we'll end up covering just about everything else. And now, the AV SuperFriends. For February 5th, 2021, it's the AV SuperFriends Off the Rails. Well, welcome back, everybody. It's time for another podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends. My name's Chris Dector. I'm joined by Larry, Mark, Jamie, and Justin. And we had some stuff planned right at the bat to talk to you about, but there's been some changes in the last couple of days. So we want to touch on that. But so today we're going to cover kind of this constantly shifting trade show schedule, what that might portend, and what trade shows of the future might end up looking like. And we want to talk about this idea of central management systems. Every AV vendor, every manufacturer makes them. There's some third-party ones. How effectively are they used, and how do we use them, and how should we be using them, and how some of us don't use them. So, but before we get to that, let's talk about trade shows. So we're coming up on summer 2021 because it's February, so it's time for summer. And that means it's trade show season. It's conference season. It's time for travels and all that fun stuff. And the note that we had to discuss today was, well, you have a major vendor, Panasonic, who said, look, we're not sure what's going on. We're going to pull out of Infocomm, and we're just going to, we're throwing in the towel this year. We'll check back next year. And so our topic of discussion was going to be, you've got a major vendor now backing out, and they're a huge presence on that show floor. And elsewhere at the show.
That's a very big booth.
That's a big booth. Does that mean you're going to start to see other ones say the same thing? And our kind of the thinking was, well, if you have one or two, but especially if you have three big vendors all say they're not going to do it, then that show is in trouble, both financially, organizationally. There's a lot of issues there. However, then this week we got, in fact, was it just yesterday or was it the day before?
I think it was yesterday morning.
It was yesterday.
Yep.
AVIXA, and I think probably rightly so, just to get out in front of the story, said, look, we're gonna push the whole show back to October. There's too many questions right now about June, even though we're still 4 months out from June. I suspect they were running into contract items with some of their manufacturers and vendors and kind of booking all that stuff. And when you have a big one like Panasonic, back out, then there's probably other ones who are making similar noises. And so they said, we're going to go to late October. And the interesting thing to me anyway, and I'm curious what everyone else here thinks, but the interesting thing to me, the reaction I saw was not one of disappointment or general relief, but kind of like, actually, that's not a bad time to have a trade show.
Yeah, I think,
because at least in higher ed anyway,
yep.
June has always been kind of a bad time for us because, yes, we finish classes and we've got a couple of weeks after classes are done, now we go to the trade show, but that's our prime time to do stuff. And we have to disappear for a week or week and a half, and part of your staff is gone or part of your staff isn't there, or maybe you're not there and you've still got projects going on and you've got integrators and vendors and all these people running around on your behalf, but you're not there to check stuff. So June was always kind of a weird time to me. Now, October, that's a great time because, frankly, I'll be honest, we're planning for a lot of stuff, but we're not doing a whole lot in the middle of October, end of October. So what do you guys think? Is October the new June, and is that going to be kind of the Infocomm moving forward, or what's our reaction here?
I kind of hope it is, and I think that June's also rough on the integrators as well, and some of the others is because of that. With fiscal years, the quarters and things all end right there, right? And so that was always an issue. And integrators are also seeing that June, July is, we've got to order stuff in order to get it in, because they're doing schools and they're doing universities and they're doing. So I think all around the board, this is actually a really smart move. And I think it'll also help with product selection as well, because we all know that you go in June, you have to install something, but it's never really available till the end of the year anyway. And I kind of wonder if now moving it to October, most people aren't buying crap as you head into December. It just, the inventories are already low. Nobody wants the taxation on that. So it just seems like maybe this is a sweet spot. The only thing I'm wondering is, in Florida in October, are we going to be dodging hurricanes? But other than
Well,
that,
I mean, here's the thing, though, is I don't have to change my socks 3 times now in Vegas or Orlando when walking around. I mean, this is going to be really nice to be able to enjoy some nice weather when it's coming up on winter in our areas for the most part. And
well, like I kind of wonder if it will also drive tourisms. I mean, October is not a giant tourist time to go to Vegas or to go to Florida or wherever.
They may have got preferred pricing.
June
could have been better for them all around.
So that's a good point on the tourism thing. Larry, I know you had talked about, hey, you want to go to Infocomm this year because, A, we missed it last year, but, hey, it's also a good time for the family vacation to Disney. What's your thought on the October versus June? Is that, I mean, you got to pull kids out of school, but, hey, they're not learning anything
that'll be
right?
a little rougher. However, it's a good time for me and the wife to get away then while the grandparents take care of the kids and send them to school. So either way, it works for me.
As part of this, it feels like they finally acknowledged higher education as part of this conference. Right? It always felt weird that man,
I don't think that was deliberate. I don't
think so either. But I will spin it that way just for my own selfish reasons because
just to be selfish.
Yeah, just to be selfish. I'll go for it because for us, we're in the middle of commencement. Right, it's always a big to do, or it's set up and it's humping cable around and all that stuff. And we've always said can you just move this show? And now it feels like now we're in October, so maybe at some point it makes sense for higher ed, but I think there's still going to be some other issues that have to be unwound. I don't know if a lot of higher ed institutions are going to allow travel still this year. So I still think they're kicking this can. I'm not 100% sure. I believe the can has really landed where it's going to ultimately land.
Yeah, maybe. I remember my last boss, not the current one, asked if I had enough pull at Infocomm to move Infocomm from the summer, because they hated me traveling during the summer when all this crap was going on. And I was like, deuces, I'm out. See ya. Have fun. So, yeah, I think it's going to be better all around. Now, the question is, does it stay that way? I guess it depends on how, quote unquote, successful it is during a pandemic, I suppose. But
when I would imagine, I guess it all depends on their contracts. I can't believe it's a year-to-year contract with Las Vegas. I think
it's like 3 to 5 years or even longer.
Yeah,
they were saying something. I asked about changes. I forgot who I was talking with. Like, when do y'all need to decide to change something contractually? And I think I remember them saying 10 years or 8 years or some crap. So I don't know. That could be
that far out, but I know it's at least a couple of years out because they can tell you the before the COVID stuff, they can tell you the exact dates of, here's 2021, 22, 23, 24. They can tell you exactly when it's going to be, at least when it was scheduled. But that may have all gone out the window with COVID.
By moving it does get it off of this fiscal year for them too. And so there may be other financial pieces of that playing into just where you put this. And there could be some losses and pieces like that going into that accounting piece. Yeah,
I mean, I suspect there's a lot of stuff related to existing contracts with manufacturers and vendors, and probably a lot of them had drop dead dates added in, sort of thing. Because I mean, we asked that question. Bit of inside baseball for presentations at Infocomm. We asked the question of, at which point do we know whether or not we're going to be going? Because we need to, our content will change for what we're presenting at some of these sessions, depending on whether it's in person or online. And that's something that AVIXA at this point was not willing to divulge an exact date, probably because they're playing the same thing. It's kind of they have to keep in mind the business aspect as well as the community aspect of it, and figure out what's best. And that's a tough,
I envision you guys have seen the Moneyball movie where you got people on phones. Like if you drop out, are you still going to go? Well, I'll give you this if you take that. I could just imagine all the phone calls and emails going on, trying to make this decision about.
You're saying there's a boiler room?
Yeah, it's a war room. They're trying to figure it out, and they're like, okay, well, what if X manufacturer doesn't go? Who can we get to fill that spot? Well, if they don't know and they're not sure and they can't travel, what does that mean for us? And so I can just imagine all these conversations, and it may not have been that way, but I'm gonna imagine it is that way in my mind.
Rough. It's got to be rough.
When do we get the oh, never mind, we'll be there email from Panasonic?
Oops, that one wasn't supposed to go out.
Well, and Jamie,
now that they moved it, we're good.
That might have been the blink that was kind of the, hey, we're going to, and they may have similar thing from other manufacturers saying, we're kind of right on the edge of that. And then they said, what about October? And that's far enough out. And that may have been Panasonic and others may have said, yeah, we're good with that.
Or we haven't made choices yet for October.
Yeah.
Let's, on those same conversations, let's remember that that one of the main sponsors being Barco, they're Dutch, right? And
Belgian.
they can't get here. Belgian, so they can't get here. There's the blockade. There's the European travel bans and such. So, how do they promote ClickShare to a gajillion people if they can't be there?
Well, so it's interesting you bring that up because
I guess they could use people's websites, but maybe mass emails by
virtual
other companies.
Yeah, they could do some big virtual events and hammer on Barco ClickShare. If you recall, a couple of months ago, ISE moved from February to June, right on top of Infocomm, and that raised some questions. And then the same thing, we had ISE come out this week and say, no, we're staying in June. So to your point about Barco and European manufacturers, they're still going to be going in, I believe they're in Barcelona this year. So they're still going to be doing the June timeframe, which was previously Infocomm. Now Infocomm's moving to October. So are we going to start seeing some of these generally related? Now, granted, ISE and Infocomm are partially both owned by AVIXA, but are we going to see some of these other related conferences, NAB and some of these other ones? Are they going to start shuffling their schedules around so that they can all kind of line up? Because a big conference like that moves, there's other dominoes that fall on that.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's like somebody's going to be left holding the bag. It's like futures contracts. Yeah. Everybody's shifting around trying to get the preferred pricing and availability, and all of a sudden, somebody's going to be pushed out. So who's going to just not happen? Somebody.
E3.
Can you imagine if we speak and they're going to schedule our hotels? Can you imagine what that shitstorm is going to look like? Like that's going to, the planes. Even with us scheduling them, there's always that chance that they're going to back out again. So
yeah,
it's just.
I mean, as far as buying the blocks of hotels, again, I think a lot of this probably came down to contract information, and they're 4 months out, and they probably have a 90-day or something. So they had to do something now, or come March 1st, they're kind of stuck with it. So yeah, you're probably
they're
right.
Scrambling trying to figure out hotel rooms for that time period. Probably right now, I guess. I don't know.
Right now, you could probably get as many hotel rooms as you want.
If AVIXA wants to get people there, all they have to do is become a max vaccination site. Just say, hey, when you come to AVIXA, we're going to give you a vaccine. Just get on that list, and then people will show up.
So a friend of mine was in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and he said, yeah, $75 and you get one of those large rooms with the views of the strip sort of thing, because they're doing everything they can to sell those rooms. So.
Just somebody in there.
Anybody. So
need eyeballs. Come see this.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I think we're all kind of curious to see how well it goes this year, but also what does this portend for future years? Is this going to be the new spot, or are they going to roll right back to June? Does ISE roll right back to February, or does this become kind of the new schedule? And honestly, I don't mind if it stays in October. But
I like it. I like wearing one pair of socks a day. It's
you guys
I like it.
Forward me the voting when it happens. If we get to choose if it stays in October or not, make sure I get that in my email.
Yeah, just put my thumb on the scale.
There's enough polls going on anyway.
So we'll have to play that one by ear and see how it turns out. But I think it's interesting that you don't have a lot of disappointed people. You have people who are kind of thinking like, that seems like a good time. Let's try that, and maybe it stays that way moving forward. So anyway, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with some discussion about central management systems. It's riveting.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So, here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
All right, well, welcome back. So today's topic of discussion is going to be one that's I think everyone has some dog in this hunt, and they kind of everyone has their opinion. Is on the topic of central management systems and central consoles that we can use to manage our various AV equipment. So, just to rattle off a bunch of them, but we're all familiar with Crestron Fusion and AMX's RMS Resource Management System, Extron GVE, which is Global Viewer Enterprise, I think. Biamp SageView, QSC Enterprise Manager, who just frankly gave up on the name. Atlona was Velocity, I think, and there's a number of other ones out there. Every manufacturer has something like this, and they all have varying levels of integration, levels of features, levels of support, depending on what version you're running, depending on how you've integrated it into your configuration, into your program. Some of them are very powerful, some of them not so much. Some of them get you exactly the right information that you want. Others give you a ton of information you don't want. And some don't give you the information you're looking for, or don't work with all their products, which is infinitely aggravating to find out that one of the products from the same manufacturer don't behave the same way. So the question comes up, why do we end up with all these different management consoles from every manufacturer, and none of them talk to each other, or what they do share doesn't give you, they don't share everything you'd like them to. And is this something that we're all, are we all comfortable using these? Is the goal to say, okay, I'm just going to base all my my general support structure, my deployment, my troubleshooting around one system, primarily for the control and switching systems? But what if you're using different control and different switching? Or do you say, I'm just going to have 25 different tabs open, and I'm going to have to browse through all of these? And let me raise this question, because this came up last week when I was talking to somebody else and didn't realize this. What about some of these manufacturers who also drag their feet on the flash switchover and base the entire front end of their central console on flash? So all the sub pages work, but if you know how to get to them, but that main dashboard screen was all flash based. So that's fun. How are we handling these? I mean, is this something where we pretty much live in one of them and begrudgingly go look at others, or do you just have to bounce between the central console for the particular system you're working in at the time, and just have all these things bookmarked and all these applications ready to run depending on what you're doing?
I wish I could say that we were like all embedded in one clean deployment. And I think there's aspirations of being there, and we are moving in that direction. But for the longest time, it's been like a collection of links. And at one point we were like running off of Google, and like it was actually working for us. We were getting analytics off of it, and it worked. We kind of build that same model into, it's a Fusion. Like we're moving towards Fusion. We're putting a lot in there, but it wasn't necessarily 100% about the central management as much as it was the need to feed data to data hungry folks who want it. And so it was kind of both of these goals set out, like, hey, we need to know what's going on, what's being used, how often is it being used, where is it being used, who's using it. And so that kind of started the whole process. Well, we can't really give you clean data until we rewrite all of our programs to be the same, so you can actually have that. So it became a little more frustrating. And I think the need still is relevant, and we want to get there. But right now it's kind of just, if somebody can give me a clean web page, I will embed it so that the technicians can have access to it the fastest way possible. And I try to do that with the least amount of logins needed. And so sometimes it's a link, sometimes it's embedded in Fusion, but it's a kind of a mix of both. We're getting better. And I think I would love to say we're a perfectly clean deployment of Fusion where everything is talking 100% well. We have clean dashboards and everything's like that. We're not there. I think we're moving towards that goal, but for us, it's a mix of both, and we're becoming more mature about it.
Yeah, I think we're the same way, where we try to do. I came from a Fusion shop. Now I'm at a GVE shop. We try to put as much as we can in GVE, but for a lot of things, it's like the Cliff Notes version. Yeah, I can get basic info, but if I need anything beyond that, I've got to open up another browser, bring something else in. And it's not ideal, but it seems to be the only way that gives me all the data I need. And that data has been useful recently when we start to peel features out of rooms to save money. We can say, well, you're not using this. If I didn't have that central database, it'd be a lot harder to justify some of those changes I've made.
Yeah, I agree, because we don't have one. So we started, I've kind of just given up hope at this point.
That's not true. You've got one now.
No, I'm gonna get there. It's not the standard dashboard
WQ has
that
to put
you
their
would
spin on everything, and it's fantastic.
You gotta get a couple people.
Yeah,
it's
great. So we had RoomView. We standardized on Crestron back in 2008, 9, I don't know. RoomView was up and running. Our programmer adopted it. He started populating things in. It was really nice when our education building got span up and all those landed nice and pretty in there. And then, things got reorged at Western, and I wasn't really in charge of that anymore, and it kind of just sat there, and no one used it, and the support desk never used it. So there was no adoption for it. There's no buy-in for it. So it kind of went to the wayside, even though it was free. This was before it was the paid-for service. They just gave it to you. And so our computer people thought that they're going to write their own, and they wrote something called LabAdmin. And it basically is just a database. It tells you possibly maybe what's in a classroom if everybody put it in correctly. Sometimes you might just have microphone. Don't know if it's 8 handhelds or 1 lapel, but it just says microphone. So, it was really made to be for computer database type stuff. So fast forward to today, and we're using Zoom. Yes, I said it. We are using Zoom as our room inventory management system.
But you're probably actually getting data out of that, useful data, realistically.
It depends on what data you're looking for. So if you want to see what's in a room, you got to go to LabAdmin. Then if you want to see if a room's online, you go to the Zoom dashboard. Oh, and forget about your other 600 rooms that aren't Zoom capable or not a Zoom room. So then what do you do about those? And that was the argument for Fusion or any of these rooms. What if a classroom was literally just a projector and a remote, and somebody brings in their laptop and that's how you use it? What are you going to do to inventory that, to keep up with it? And it falls outside of that standard dashboard. And if you don't have buy-in to add a simple processor just to collect metrics off the projector, like, it seems really simple to do, but when you're trying to convince the biology department to replace their 15-year-old projector, they're not going to buy a $500 processor on top of the projector cost. So that goes back to our funding model, which is it's a whole shit show. But we're changing things, so hopefully this is going to change for the better, because they are useful, and it's designed by data, right? If you're not using something, don't keep putting it in and wasting money.
I imagine if Zoom is actually monitoring your rooms and you didn't know what was in the room, you could launch a Zoom call and see what's in the room. So
because we're not scripting shut off times through Zoom, because they don't work, you say, well, shut off at 11 p.m. 11 p.m. goes by. It's like, oh, you don't keep up with time. So then you got to start a Zoom call, join that room. Oh, look, the displays are on. Hey, student worker, can you go turn off the displays? Because you can't do that.
You got to
Zoom.
get your JSON programming correct, man. That's what that is.
That's a whole different story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we've tried a bunch, and we're a very eclectic campus, right? We fortunate and unfortunate, right? I'm fortunate in the fact that I don't really have restrictions. I buy the right tool for the job. For standardized rooms, it's Extron, because every one of my technicians quickly can do anything they want in there, right? But GVE, we tried to tune it up. Now there's 2 things to that. One, the original person in charge of tuning up GVE was eclectic all on his own, Chris, you recall? And, our programmer before...
I feel like there's more to this story, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah, that's buddy, you gotta know them kind of thing. And so we didn't really get what we wanted out of it. We had meeting manager, and it was a complete and then transferred to RMS and from AMX, and it was a complete debacle. And Fusion has been tried to be sold to us several times, because we do have most of our large systems are Crestron, because it's the right tool for the job. But there, I just named 3. Right. And that doesn't count that Kramer Vias. It doesn't count some of these other things. And that's where I love the idea of the data collection. I love the idea of a quick dashboard where I can see online, offline. Right. I like that. But it doesn't ever seem to be that way without hours and hours and tons of work. Right. And we don't have dedicated programmers to keep that going. We don't have server admins at our beck and call to make sure all this is up to date and online and everything else. And it's even more complicated now. Several of the companies, it's like, well, you can have Fusion, you just can't put a Pro 2 on it. That's an example that's not correct, right? That's an example. And you're going, well, wait a minute. I can't put a product that you made that used to be available. No, if it doesn't reach to firmware 18.2.2.2, then you can't use it anymore. So I have to run 2 versions of this, yes, or upgrade. Well, here's my middle finger, right? And so that's where it's really frustrating on our end. So I really want one.
Well, so I've been researching
tired
this. Of it. So check this out, guys. So we haven't really talked about this. Check this shit out. There is something out there that maybe possibly could work for all platforms. And I've researched it on and off over the past 5 years. No, it's not click view, click share, click portal, click nothing. No clicking.
Just upload everything to Amazon.
Pepperdash. Have you ever heard of Pepperdash?
Yes.
I have heard of Pepperdash.
They've got something.
Well, they run a third supposedly party thing,
so correct. But I've never experienced it. Larry, does it not work?
Pepperdash is just a third party. They're a programming house, so they wrote their own console. And Jamie, remember SKC did the same thing and came and pitched it to us. So
yeah, it was.
But that's been going on for years, and it's still around. So has it been adopted widely, or they just haven't given up, or what's the deal there? Do you know more than I do?
I looked at it at Butler, and I wasn't sold on it then, because much like Jamie, we had AMX, Extron, and Crestron before I converted everything over to one, which is something I want to talk to Jamie about.
No.
I'm just saying, like, you've said there's an issue with not everything being on the same. Well, why not get everything on the same to eliminate that issue? Isn't it easier to train your guys how to program Crestron than to have the 3 flavors?
Larry, I'm going to blow your mind and say move everyone to QSC. That's the future.
Actually,
whatever flavor is your choice. I'm just saying that if the right tool for the job is only the right tool, if it makes your life easier.
I think it boils down to, and I missed the conversation we had about staffing, right? And I think it boils down to the aptitude of your technical crew, right? Dragging and dropping matches the aptitude of my technical crew. And I have not been convinced by any of Crestron's drag and dropping protocols to tell me that that's the way to go. And this isn't a bad mouth to Crestron at all. And I also don't particularly enjoy feeling like I have to be locked into a certain thing because it reaches my management system, right? Because there's a lot of tools that we can all use out there that doesn't fit the management system. And that's my frustration here, is that I want a management system. I really just want the data. I don't want all the other BS they try to sell us. I am really tired of taking the calls of, you need Fusion so that you can remote support. Well, no, because I'm not going to remote support.
We do.
I'm
it
not
helps.
going to. Yeah. Well, but we don't, but we don't. And my call center doesn't use
Fusion to do that. So.
Right.
No.
I think that's the crux of the conversation. What is it that you need this to do? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with this? And we all see it. It's come, they sell it. It looks so nice. It's so well organized. It's like, well, yeah, that was a building with 150 of the exact same room. Mm-hmm. So, of course, it's going to look really good. I have 75 different rooms with different processors and different endpoints. And so, they're like, oh, you just go ahead and put that in there. It's like, well, wait, let's unpack that. Go ahead and put that in there. There's a little more to it than just go ahead and put that in there. Like, there's staff hours and there's labor that's going to go in there to reprogram, align programs. It's not as quick and easy as they just say, oh, just do this. And we get the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of
just go
labor
ahead and
in
change.
management.
If you can just change all your processors, it's like, yeah, if I could do that, I would totally do that. But I have 65 of them, and they're on a schedule, and it's not right now. And so, how do you balance that? And I think you have to ask that question: what is it that you need this tool to do? And so, how many of your calls truly need to have Fusion involved to fix the problem that's being brought to you? Like, what are you doing? You can select sources, and if something's offline, Fusion's not going to put it back online for you.
You know, the other thing.
So the answer
really
is we don't have an answer.
Me and yeah. Well, really also irks me and pisses me off about some of this stuff is that where gets sold a product or an idea of a product, and it says, oh yeah, you can do this, and it'll automatically post here, and it will do this thing, and it will do that. Great, I bought it. Oh, but you need Fusion. What? Yeah, you have to spin up, and not just the low grade one. You have to get the enterprise one. Like, then screw you and take your thing back, right? Because I'm like,
no, don't pitch me this stuff. And they don't even put a little asterisk anymore, right? That says requires Fusion. And I'm picking on Crestron and Fusion. I wish I had that just seems to be like the Kleenex of these things, right? Everybody knows what it is. So that's not fair, but it is fair because they're one of the main culprits of my disdain of this, that the feature's not available if you don't have their management server. Like, that's crap. They don't make it a feature. Make it a feature of the server, not of the device. And
But that's how they get you into a software license that renews every year. Then that's what they want.
Yes, the renewal license.
A perpetual license that
like
comes with hardware doesn't do them any good to their bottom line.
And I recognize that because we're so eclectic, and I like being eclectic. Look, I like the fact that I have these things everywhere. I wish there was a better way to track it. I don't need a lot of the data. I need little analytics. I need how many times was this pushed. I need...
But that's not support. Device, your data is not support and
I just
room
want
management.
Data. I don't want the rest of it.
So, and I think you mentioned it earlier. It's like, oh, well, you need this to do central support. No, I don't. If the number one problem I need is just to power cycle something, I can get an IP-enabled power sequencer and manage that without any of this stuff. What we're all really solving is data and mining that data and providing that data to admins. And I think it's not been clear in the sales pitch we get pitched that, oh, you need this to manage. Your support staff need this. It's like, no, they really don't. It's just a web page aggregator. Do we need to put all the web pages on one thing? Sure, great. We can do that.
Yeah, we use students primarily for most of our support, and we just got moved farther off campus. And so it does make support easier for the students too. So that's a nice feature and a nice benefit for us. But yeah, the data, that's the key for the future. That's what I really want. But the selling feature right now that helps me put it in place is the support aspects as well.
On the support side, is everybody monitoring the dashboard at all times, or is it just a handful of people, or is it when a ticket comes in, you go look at the dashboard first?
I want to take a break on this because I have some very specific things about this on triggers. But let's use this opportunity to sneak in a quick break, and let's come back on the other side. And I want to talk about kind of like,
so I get to yell more.
Yeah, the triggers of work and how this
fan
work.
is spinning up.
Yeah,
so
I have smoke coming out of my computer right now. So let's take a quick break.
We'll be right back.
There's a great new digital magazine from Higher Ed AV Media found at higheredav.com, and we do a special monthly show where we actually stay on topic. It's a show where we try to really focus on a single topic and break it down into AV SuperFriends style. That's AV SuperFriends on topic, found at avsuperfriends.com, higheredav.com, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts from.
All right, well, we're back. We just had a swearing and shouting session about determining which manufacturer, who we won't name, made the worst products. And I think every one of us had our favorite worst product from them. And then we started sharing war stories about...
looking for sponsors, so if there's any sponsors out there.
Which one of those was the worst?
To be fair,
it's a good time to bring that up.
To be fair, we only had one manufacturer, and we all chose our own worst product from that person.
Yeah, and they were all
had a
different.
One. Yes.
So, and they were all different.
At least
and
5 bad products.
So
5 bad products
to them
within
for coming
10
up
years.
with bad products, but for different reasons, all from the same manufacturer. So
your award is in the mail.
You keep buying their stuff.
You're going to get your award
University
soon.
of Technology incompetence there. So anyway, all right, let's go back to central management consoles and systems like that. So, Mark, you just brought up the idea of some of these systems sometimes seem to be creating more work for you than they're really saving you, and some kind of unique aspects to that. So what are you finding?
So we've all had some version of this anomaly where you show up in the morning and all the alarms are going off. Maybe it's a building, maybe it's a room or a subset of rooms, and all your alarms are triggering. And so as a organization, what does that mean? Right? Whose job is it to monitor alarms? And does that mean they drop everything else they're doing and now go and babysit to get Fusion or whatever it may be back up and running? And we've found that if there's power outages and weird things with the network, we may get weird false alarms that may make us believe that something may be offline because it has not been reset.
It's never the network's problem.
No, I know. I'm well aware of that. It is never the network's problem. I would never imply that the network is.
So do your alarms send you do they auto email? Do your alarms auto email?
No, we are not that painful to ourselves.
Our programmer had set that up, and we couldn't turn it off. And so we have power outages and get blown up with hundreds of emails because he didn't restrict it to one only. It was like one every 6 minutes. Oh, it was maddening.
But then you find yourself like this is happening, and now you're reorganizing your day to get in to like clean out alarms that really was not part of your schedule of what you were going to do. Now, busy work, I guess I could take it as that, but my guess is you all have experienced some level of this false flag thing going on and had more work because of it. And it's now I'm sure there's a configuration thing somewhere to clear that out and blah, blah, blah. But again, it's just, just go ahead and put it in there and it'll work for you. Oh, you just ignore them.
I mean,
cool. That works too.
Just take the phone off the hook. Solved.
There was an event though. Like you need to I don't know what the event was. The event, everything came back as it was, but there was an event.
There.
It caused that. I mean, as a programmer, something happened that it lost communication. And so would you rather not know?
Well, maybe
on the chance that it didn't.
Zoom's telling me I have a Zoom room that has a SIP problem. It still works. So we have all just said, you know what? I don't know what that is, and we don't know what it's doing, but we're just going to ignore that one error.
This is like...
It's
the inflation of what's important, right? Like everything's urgent all the time. Is anything urgent ever? Right? That's this. Like, so if you're going to like pick and choose alarms, like what's the point?
But those are all variables that you can set. I mean, it's the way it's set up.
I set all my alarms to all critical. Everyone is the same. They're all the same level.
Then nothing's critical. Then nothing's important. Exactly. If everything's important, then nothing's important. That's how that works.
This goes back to that management and programming and really the idea that you have thoughtfully applied these services to your product. Because so many, and this is what happened to us, right? The programmer I had before, is he just blanketed it, right, man? If it could be triggered, he triggered it. And that's why we just get, and the lights were red all the damn time. And it was sometimes it was
Christmas.
Nothing.
It's always Christmas.
And so you get into that thing is like, you just blanket it. I want to know everything. And so if you don't really have a good idea and a good vision of what do I want to track, what's really important to me, what's it matter if it's up or down and for how long? If it's down for hours, maybe we care. Otherwise, do we? We had an issue once where the network folks they reconfigured the switches. Well, for some reason, one of the communication ports.
It's never the network.
Yeah,
never the network.
One of the communication ports that we were using was now deemed illegal. Right. And it wasn't. It was just they accidentally triggered this thing. And when we told them about it, they said, oh, yeah, we opened that port back up for you. Right. But
was this the day they took 40 systems offline because they couldn't report via Telnet?
Yes. And so then we got Telnet back.
Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing where it's not really a problem. Like if you go to the room, we send out technicians. They all go to the room and say, it worked great.
It's change management. It's change management. Nobody told anybody they were making a change, and then you got burned.
And so, but that goes back to I really want one, right? And maybe the reason I'm so frustrated is because I do have an idea of what I want to track from what things. But I only need one thing from here and two things from there and three things from here, and I can't do it in one tool. I've got to do it in 6. And then it's just me, right? Or I have to get a server admin to light me up that many servers because we are not allowed to just run it on a regular machine. We have to run it on the centralized server clusters. And so I got to get the virtual servers spun up, which costs me time and money. And it's all these things. That's what's really frustrating to me. But maybe it is because I have this very specific subset of needs and I'm not just blanking it. Or I can't just blanket it either. To Larry's point, I don't have the same thing everywhere. I can't just blanket it.
But it sounds like you need to start programming your own custom thing.
Well, to that point, then, if you had the ability to apply the same requirements to every space, what about these devices now? And especially, I think there's a very critical category of these devices that are rarely or barely supported by any of these control systems, and that's DSPs. We're all leaning heavier, or more and more heavily on DSPs in all our designs because we're doing more audio, and that's more critical than ever. And all the DSP manufacturers have their own console systems, but it doesn't do everything you want, or you don't get the right information out of it. And then you go to your third party. So even if you had that one central management system for all your control systems and your general AV systems, they may not be getting much back from the DSP other than, well, it's online, but then you're still opening up yet another tab or yet another application to go look at that DSP to see what it's doing. And I mentioned QSC before. They're doing cool stuff with just web-based access to things, which is nice. But you're still kind of like, now I have to balance between all these systems to get all the information that I want out of it. So it's still kind of this clunky, kludgy system.
That's the Cliff Notes thing I was talking about, because you can program the hooks to get more than it's online. You can get enough information to know, but usually like back when I was programming, you'd put the utility page that would get you even more information. So they could still launch that from the same tool. But if you needed more than that, you're on a separate tool entirely.
But have any of you had a discussion with your network engineers about using their platforms? Has that came up?
We tried. We did.
Did it lead down to the discussion like, hey, well, that's great if we know our devices are online, but that doesn't mean they're working. And get them to understand that.
Yeah.
Right? Just because something's online, that doesn't mean shit.
What it really boiled down to for us is that they could dial in the Wireshark thing, right? They could nitpick this, and they got to the point where we need to know every little single nitty gritty thing. And I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I am not that kind of programmer. I am not that kind of data.
3. Where you're at is not the support desk role.
Yeah,
like I don't want those features in something that my students are doing. Like if I get to that level and you're like, oh well shit, let me open this up and get into the programming. Like I have an instructor on a phone who's trying to teach a class. The last thing they have is 25 minutes for me to dig through and pick through a program. At that point, they've already gone nuclear. They're all right, we're just going to go ahead and reset this whole thing, and here we go. We're off to the races again. So it's a power cycling thing, right? And so at some point, like, where do you want to draw the line of acceptable things for people to actually do while on a call? Like, and at some point you just say, yep, sorry, we're going to escalate this ticket to a technician. We'll get you limping through the best we can, and we'll follow up. Like that's... At some point, you have to kind of get to that point.
Is that room next to you being used? Yeah, just hop over.
It comes down to that. Sometimes it does.
Sometimes it fixes that.
Right? And so and then it's like, okay, well, we shouldn't be spilling over to tier 2, tier 3 service support while on a call. And so do we really need access to a full-fledged tool set that gives you that level?
When engineering at Western gets involved, when we get involved with the ticket, we're doing it basically on our own time because stopgap measures have already been set. The class has been moved, or if we are involved during a call, it's like super serious, you know.
Yeah.
But
I think ultimately most of us like the idea of having some sort of system, but maybe the manufacturers need to find a different way for it to work for us.
I think when you have the conversation, you have to like be clear of your box, right? Here's the box I want this to fit into, and this is the service I need from it. Like, don't sell me on what it can do. Let me tell you on what I need to accomplish.
Well, and then tell me what I need.
Mark, you raise a good point.
Because I hate getting you need this other license.
Yeah. Early on, Mark, you mentioned the idea that when we had somebody actually build kind of like a third-party dashboard through, shared Google pages and things, just to kind of collect all the, as Larry keeps calling it, the Cliff Notes version, to just say, here's my snapshot dashboard that pulls from 4 or 5 different things, and that's everything I need right now. If I need more than that, I have venues to get, or vectors to get into that stuff, but it's not something I should be doing right now. And so that, raises the question of a lot of these systems do have limited, Larry mentioned before, they do have hooks from the programming into third-party systems. They do have limited API access here and there. Some of them are better than others. Some of them allow you to pull a lot of interesting data. Some of them will give you just like status reports, but they won't let you actually interact with that until you go to the other tool. So I don't think we're ever going to find that kind of one ring to rule them all system. But at the same time, maybe we don't need that if we're just trying to triage something because somebody's on a call. And Justin, like you said, by the time you get into this stuff, those triage things have already been done. And so you have time to dig into it. But, what are we doing for that first level of dashboard? And all the manufacturers have their own, but I think they would all like you to use theirs as the primary and then link to somebody else's, not the other way around. And that becomes a real kind of messy interface for any sort of standardization or any sort of development. And now are we spending more development cycles trying to customize our stuff to work best with this dashboard when, we could be doing something else with our time. So.
Yeah, but I wonder, and I'm not I'm not this good of a programmer at all. But I do wonder though how difficult it would be to have more of like a database built third party solution, because as you said, almost everything we deal with has a API that's open. Now it's open, right? Almost all of them have some kind of HTTP, HTML, or Python or whatever that most programmers that know what they're doing, not me, can easily put in. So at some point, would it be easy to have some kind of Google spreadsheet where it said, green light, red light. Green light means enter command here at this IP address, right? I mean, would that? I don't know. I don't know if some third-party person can put that together where
they can. And what you're saying is true. It's not hard. It's time. And that's the problem, I think, with higher ed is, are you going to pay
I'm
a
wondering if
full-time
some
person?
company would put it together. Like you buy this Google-ish kind of deal from somebody else.
Well, I think there's so many variables there that would,
yeah.
So when
everybody's looking for different stuff, and all five of us would look for different things, and then if we all go to Pepperdash and say we want this,
could open the
I just want pretty colors.
No, I mean, they just kind of give you a CSV file, and you open up the manual and say, "Oh, I want power status," and you go over to the CSV file, and under power you just type in
you're just sending serial strings from
0T, right? You just want to know
exactly
what it says.
Yeah. So when I would do help at the service desk, I would just run simple debugger. I would have debugger open. I would just connect to a system, and I don't care what the X panel says. I don't care that I could send a command. It's online or offline. What do you want to happen? Tell me the goal. Why are you calling me right now? Okay, I will make that happen for you. And I would just send a command right there from simple debugger. So to me, it's like, what are we asking? Do you want to see a web page that says if something's online or offline, or do you want to actually make something happen? And so if you need to make something happen, go to the tool that allows you to do that. If something's offline, you can try to access a web page all day long. It's not going to care. It's offline. So like, getting a lights that say, hey, all these systems or these components are not there. It's red. And now guess what? The phone's going to ring. Yep, here it is. All right, guys, get ready. There's a network problem
offline,
somewhere.
You're not running debugger.
Right, exactly. Because I can't connect to it. And usually I would say, okay, I can't send a command to anything. There's no response. Somebody's going to have to go down there and guess what? Your power is cycling the whole station.
Now, yeah.
We're back to SneakerNet.
Yeah, I always love that too. When the first response is pull the plug, you're like, yeah, but you just erased the log.
Wait. Don't
I just couldn't log in.
Yeah.
Couldn't log in.
We've had to train our support staff to leave it broke if it can be left broke, so engineering can go there and figure out what's going on in its broken state, right?
Yeah, but you get that weird time dilation effect where you're standing in front of people in a room, and so you start to
you can't do that then.
Yeah, right. So you have to do something. Yeah, that's the problem.
I'm all for the get it going right now. But when appropriate, like Justin said, if it's during a morning check or something, or it's during an off hour, then call me. Let me see what I can do, and then give it the old kick in the ass. But
then yank the power while talking to Jamie.
Yeah, I'm gonna call Jamie every time.
I guess the one other item I wanted to bring up related to this, and we're seeing this more and more from the different vendors, is this idea of on-prem versus cloud hosted of these consoles. And several of them are like, no, let us host it for you. But then you find out that comes with additional weird licensing restrictions or deployment restrictions, or
we need $5,000 a month.
Yeah,
like
there's certain things that you could do right now that if you move to that you can't do. Though there are advantages to letting them worry about the security and the server side things, and but it's like this is clearly the model moving forward because that's where there's revenue involved in that. And at a certain point, what happens when they just cut you off? As we mentioned earlier, when certain devices, the firmware doesn't support software that you're using for monitoring or whatnot. And what happens when they do the same thing with the remote management, when they say, well, this new version supports all these, but that's only in the cloud sort of thing. I know they really want that because it allows them to deploy those cookie-cutter solutions, but it doesn't fit for all of us.
Do any of you, are you all paying for a service for room management? I mean, is that being, no one on this call is paying for...
But you get the sales constantly for it.
Well, yeah. So I don't know any university out there that pays for that service. So supply demand states that. Is that going to last?
If you don't know a university who pays for it, that means there's thousands of potential customers. Mm-hmm. Think like a salesman.
Well, I think that
or thousands of hours wasted trying to sell us on some shit that we don't need. I don't know.
I mean, once they get us to buy into the central management, we're going to buy all their product. So it makes sense for them to give it
you're
away.
locked in, committed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
Unless you're
there,
Jamie.
Larry, lies my issue. Now, I think our school's done a lot of flip-flopping on that very topic of on-prem or cloud. For a long time, we were like, there is nothing leaving this campus. There's not data leaving this campus. It's not being cloud hosted for anything. And they're now re-examining all of that. And
it's cost.
Like 0365. Yes, a lot of it is. It's bandwidth, it's servers, it's admin, it's all these things. It's actually cheaper to get it hosted and to make and I also think that the internet, the speeds, just even the backbones outside of our campuses, because usually our campus is pretty stout, but outside of it, I think everything has gotten just well enough that there's really no difference. There's no lag. There's no latency to host it online or on-prem or on the cloud. And I also think that people, the security nerds, have now reached this level of trusting each other enough where they can say, okay, I trust your little certificate and you trust my certificate. So when we make this connection, we trust each other, that it's secure. Now we all know
I think
how
part of that
goes.
is also is accountability, though. And that was our big thing is it just, in my opinion, if it was on-prem, it was under our control, under our support. When Zoom goes down and we get 5,000 support calls, I don't know, Zoom's down. We'll let you know. Like you lose the control, right?
That's what I was going to say. If you're going to play in the cloud, you better bring an umbrella because you're going to get rained on at some point.
And you got to make sure that the whole university's bought into the fact that, well, we all are going to accept that it's not IT's fault when this service goes down because
tell that to an angry instructor. He doesn't give a shit whose fault it is.
And I'm not even talking about, I don't think I would trust a service to that. Well, not me for our stuff, right? I'm not going to host my QSC or BiAmp processing.
This whole call's in the cloud right now, man.
But right now, for them to be my management system, my monitoring system to be in the cloud, if it goes down, am I really affected? Except for those rare cases where I depend upon that server to kick off a meeting somewhere like Zoom. That sucks, right? But then you're left holding the bag. But if they're just monitoring how many times if they're just monitoring how many times my instructors are using VGA and justifying the fact that it's coming back, then if it goes down for a day, no biggie.
Yeah, there's an architecture conversation in here. It's like, so let me ask you this, and to eat up some more time on us. Is internet a prerequisite to having your classes function? Do you have to have internet to have a class?
I think
are you asking from a technical standpoint or teaching standpoint?
There are several people who believe if I do not have access to internet, I cannot hold my class. And so if you were to move and make your classroom so they are depending on a cloud connectivity for whatever, if it's processing or whatever it is, if you do not have internet, can you have class?
I think that it's now reached the crux. We've peaked that hill where it used to be if you didn't have a marker or a piece of chalk, you couldn't have class, right? You get pissed off and leave. Yep. And I think now it's vice versa. You can have all the chalk and markers in the world. If you don't have internet, you're not having class, which seems ridiculous because you should be able to communicate your information other ways, but that's not my gig, right? Stay in my lane.
So if that is the case, then we can all come to a conclusion and say, okay, it's okay if the cloud service goes down because it's widely accepted that classes need internet. Mm-hmm. There's your answer, Justin.
Yeah, I
Put it
think
on the cloud.
I think a lot of people they rely on cloud-hosted Canvas or Blackboard or whatever it might be, where they store their materials because it's convenient and get to it. But you're right, when you can't get there, a lot of people just kind of freeze up at that point. And it's the same thing for me.
I think the biggest thing, the biggest thing that I've seen that for us is the storage capacity. And one small example was just email. And I think we multiplied my storage space by 20 times going to O365, a hosted service. Yeah, can I work?
But then
if my email goes down?
O365.
Well, right. And so we're on O365. Now, what happens when my email goes down?
That's a whole show on its own.
It hasn't happened yet. I will survive. It'll be okay. I can text some people, make some phone calls, have redundancy plans built in. Yeah, this new computer is shit. Computer down
based on the cloud, right? But this goes back to the thing, right? We are now.
But it's not the cloud. I have to take my computer back on campus to log into it because it's on-prem.
Because you have security.
So now you're confusing. You're blurring the lines, Jamie. You're blurring the lines.
Justin, that's because you took university property off campus. So there you go.
I did. I stole my laptop and brought it to my home office and didn't log into it before I got home and realized I won't have a laptop all weekend now. Well, at least my new one. My old one's still
working. So that raises another question, though. What about in modern, and maybe Mark, to your comment about things requiring the internet, modern AV systems often like to report back, and if you have a central management system that is pulling information, but whether it's on-prem or whether it's cloud-hosted, these things are reporting outbound. What happens for those oddball situations? And I say oddball, it's strange to think about, but there are times when you don't want your AV system on the network because, for whatever reason, secure facility or something like that. And our typical deployment may not work in those scenarios because it's trying to reach out to get to things and it can't get there. And so that raises questions. If we get too reliant on some of these central management systems that are either cloud connected, cloud hosted, or even just internet connected for sharing of information or sending data back and forth, and all of a sudden you're setting up one, you realize, well, from this facility I can't get there, or the network isn't working today and I can't finish configuring this because I can't get to whatever I need to finalize that. It starts to raise some very strange issues when only 5 or 6 years ago, the standard MO was everything was on a 10 dot or a 192, and you were doing everything over 232, and it was never a network problem because the network at that point was completely ancillary to the actual operation of the system. Maybe more than 5, 7, 10 years ago. But
who's running 10 dots and 169s? I do 169 dot whatever's.
You what?
I do.
You're crazy, son. You are nuts. If you're link local and everything, man, we got to have a whole nother conversation about this shit.
I think I know the issues with your management system.
You might need to talk with your network engineers too, man.
Wait,
but is
that you?
There's a use case for scenarios like that, and are we going to see those deprecate, and now we have to get special like network exceptions or holes punched through the firewall for some of the things just to reach out to a central console when they should be able to, in theory, operate completely independently. So something to consider.
Internet as an enabling service.
Yeah, the internet should help you, not like hinder what you're trying to do. So why can't I send video from this thing to that thing because it can't communicate on the internet? Weird.
Yeah, that is a stupid problem.
And yet it's one that we all get to deal with. So, Justin, as you just mentioned, when Zoom goes down, 5,000 people are affected immediately.
Yeah.
So,
and it actually makes the news. All they're really
trying to do is just hold their class. It makes the news.
It does.
I find out when Zoom is down.
I saw on the news one morning, hey, Zoom's down. I'm like, oh shit. And like Western, yeah, we got 5,000 tickets today. That makes sense.
There we go. Well, I think we solved the problem. I think we got the answers to all.
Yeah, so I think this has been an interesting conversation. It sounds like we're all over the place. We don't have a single solution to this, and it raises a lot of questions.
It doesn't exist.
If we try to wrap it up, we would say we're all using some variations of central management systems in different ways and in different methodologies. It's critical to the general use case, but it is something that we're all kind of begrudgingly accepting of, and some of us are better at it than others, but we're all still looking for a perfect solution. So if you have a perfect solution, please write in, tell us what it is. It's not Pepper Dash, Justin. And
I was asking the question. I've never seen it. I was asking.
We'll take a look at that. So, everybody's got their own. All the manufacturers have their own. They would all love their system to be the primary one, but they can't all be primary. So I think what's most maddening is when manufacturers restrict features based on what central management system you're using, which is aggravating. We've all dealt with that. So we're not going to solve it today. We'll solve that next week, and we invite you to come back and chat with us then. Thanks for listening. Well, we've managed to ruin yet another episode of AV Super Friends Off the Rails. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com. If you complain loud enough, we might just invite you on the show.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV Super Friends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.